Yeah, g'day, Bush Camping Tools here. Well, I've been asked on the channel to talk about when I would take out fixed blade knives only or folding knives only, or, you know, am I taking out fixed blades and folding knives? Well, fact is, it depends on where I'm going as to what I take. So it's, you know, normally I have a good think about it and I just don't throw any old knife in the bag when I'm going out there. But before I get further into the discussion, I want to qualify what kind of folding knives I'd be taking out with me out into such like here, and that is I'd be taking out a lock back knife. Here's a traditional lock back knife, you know, with a rear you know, lever action on it like that. Okay, generally two-handed. Of course you could open it if you had to one-handed like this, but generally it's a two-handed knife, and I'd be taking that, something like that. Or the other thing I'd be taking out is a more sort of modern design, if you like, with a, you know, a thumb stud, so you can definitely open it one-handed. This is a liner lock as opposed to a lock back, and you can see here that I'll just actually fold both of these up. You can see they're both, you know, this blue one is much bigger in width. It's a little bit longer than this green one, and it's bigger in width, but in actual fact the blades are about the same length. Let's line those blades up. Can you see that there like that? The blades are pretty much the same length, even though the handle is much bigger on this. So you could say the handle's bigger because you've got a better grip, and that's a good thing too on that. And I would consider both of these kinds of knives. A traditional locking knife like that is being a good bet. You know, the blade's about 3.5 mils thick on there. It's the same for this modern thing. You've probably just seen me review this recently. But you could also take out, so they're the kind of folders that I would carry with me, a locking folder. If I'm traveling though, where there's a lot of people around, so say I was on a trek in Nepal or something, I wouldn't take a knife like this. I'd be taking a Swiss Army knife because it's just going to be much more useful. You're always going to be around people. You might have to open tins of food or use screwdrivers and things like that, and you're not going to have them on something like this. And also out in the bush like this, you know, I wouldn't take a Leatherman or a Gerber tool or a Swiss tool. They're great, but there's going to be nowhere out here I'm going to be using those unless I have some other equipment with me that has screws and nuts and bolts all over it. Sometimes you can, like stoves, fuel stoves. So if I'm carrying a fuel stove, I might carry a multi-tool for sure. But if we look at the realms of fixed blade knives, here's a small fixed blade, and I'll just open this one up here to show you the blade length. They're approximately the same, but this is a fixed blade, and in actual fact, you see, I don't know if you can see that there, but the thickness of the blades are about the same too, but one is a fixed blade and one is a folder. Now, obviously the advantages of taking the folder is that it's half the size when it's folded up, and you can put it in your pocket, whereas this thing, it doesn't matter what you do with it, you have to have it in the scabbard. And in terms of reliability, well, you know, obviously there's no moving parts on something like this, so there's really nothing to fail on it. I'm going to exclude the blade breaking. We have to remember that, you know, that we're not going to talk about that, but there's moving parts, there's dirt and stuff that can get into these things, and then they're difficult to open and close. Maybe with this, you know, you can still take it up one-handed even if you don't have the scabbard on you, and you've got a sturdy fixed blade, and that might suit you too. But you have to remember it's a little bit longer. It's going to be about twice the length. You could also carry with you hiking. You might carry something a little bit bigger. Again, this is like a hunting style knife. Okay, this is a Kiesler Supreme knife of mine, a Maximus. I've actually got two of these. This one's in D2, my other one's in OS8. It's not too thick. Again, it's about 4 mils thick. Good grip, good around the wet, great hunting knife. And you could also take out something even bigger. Again, this is just an example. This is a, you know, kind of more of a military style knife, but I find it useful in the bush too, and that's my Extremaratio Mark 2.1, very, very sturdy knife. However, and it's got a great sheath too. Both of those, that Kiesler and this, have got a great sheath. They're very, very safe sheaths, and also this is a little bit disguised too, if you like. That could be anything if you really don't know anything about knives. But the thing about taking these things out is these, you really are going to probably have them strapped to your side. And if you're going on a hike, which I would say is a major route, somewhere there's lots of people on there, you're never going to be leaving the trail. Why is there? There's no need to leave the trail. I wouldn't carry a knife like this. You're just not going to need it. You know, you can get away with a reliable folder or a smaller knife like this. As I was saying, you know, if you are out on a major trail, you don't want to be walking around carrying these big knives like this. They're unnecessary. The only caveat I would say is that if you're on a major trail and you know the area like the back of your hand and you want to take a shortcut, often people want to take shortcuts to get away from big crowds and hook up somewhere else on the trail, at least I do. You could take that shortcut, and if that involves going through some serious amounts of wilderness to join up again with a track, you might want to take something more sturdy with you, like a bigger fixed blade knife, and therefore just carrying a folding knife may not be completely adequate. Of course, I would caution those kinds of excursions unless there are at least 2 people that know those wilderness areas like the back of their hand, because if you go with several other people and you're the only one that knows this shortcut and you get hurt or something happens to you and you're with other people, and they're going to be in big trouble because you know, they might end up lost without you. So you need to have at least 2 people that you know these regions like the backs of their hands if you're going to take shortcuts. But if you're not going to take a shortcut and you're going to go on these hikes where there's other people camping around you and you're only going to be cutting up food around the camp because you're not out there hunting or anything like that, I would take, you know, a simple folding lock blade knife, a reliable lock blade, whether it's got a serrated edge on it or a plain edge, something that can be locked. Yeah, and this will serve you quite well. And you can prepare tinder with these kinds of things if you have to light a fire. But if it's also a, you know, a well-known trail, maybe you're not allowed to light a fire. Maybe you've got to have a fuel stove with you, and you won't need to worry about that. So there goes, you know, any need to carry a bigger knife. The alternative is to carry a smaller fixed blade like this, okay? Because this doesn't have any more functionality than something like this. As I said, these are 2, you know, the blade lengths are approximately the same. In fact, this folder blade length is a little bit longer. But this does carry some more reliability with it, having a small fixed blade, and this will be fine. It doesn't take up too much more room than this, you know, a big locking knife. There you go. It's about, you know, a little less than half, double the size, okay? And you could carry that on your belt. Weight-wise, yes, it's a little bit heavier. So again, you know, if you're one of these people that are crazy about weight, but sometimes it's not just weight. Another reason why, you know, not just considering weight for something like these things take up room. If you don't carry them on your waist, you've got to carry them in your pack, and it will take up the room for food. They're much heavier. You know, the weight of this weighs, I would say, about, you know, 2 or 3 big packets of dried rice noodles. Now, they carry lots of energy, and you can be out in the wild for a long time living off that for the weight of your knife. And if you don't really need to carry such a knife, you know, I would advise against doing that. I certainly don't, because I don't want to be, you know, doing that where I am now. You know, I'm only several kilometers away from anybody here, and I bring them out here to show you now. But normally, you know, I would, you know, I take these kinds of things where it's much more wild. So yeah, in summary, I just want to say then that you really need to think about, I think these days too, you know, if you're going into where there's going to be lots of people on well-walked trails, a good reliable locking folder knife is you know, is more than good enough. You know, whether you can open it with one hand with a thumb stud, or 2 like this, a traditional style one. If you're going on a trek, you know, like somewhere like in Nepal or around New Zealand, well, actually, let me qualify that. New Zealand, sometimes I've taken big knives like this because I'm hunting and fishing too. But yeah, let's say a really popular trekking destination in Nepal or somewhere like that, you know, a Swiss Army type knife will be a lot handier, or even a, you know, multi-tool there. Possibly, I've seen someone repair their shoes. They needed the pliers to pull some needles through their shoes. And of course, the alternative is to taking a locking knife is you could take a small fixed blade like that. That's about the same size. The weight-wise, these 2 are about the same. They're almost the same. Okay, this is probably a little bit lighter. When you add the scabbard, it's a little bit heavier. It's negligible. It's negligible. So you could take a small fixed blade, but the advantage, of course, is when you've got these folded down, you know, this is half the size, so it's much easier to transport and carry. All right, bush camping tools here. Thanks for watching.